Hey, it's Captain Matt, Boat Buyer's Secret Weapon, and today we're talking the problem with cruisers. They're a great option for some, but there are some problems with it, starting with number one, the interior space to sit in the cockpit. So enjoying the outside weather when you're on a boat. This is a 280 Sea Ray SunDancer that's 28 feet, 8.5 feet wide. This is a Sea Ray 185 Sport, which is 8.5 feet wide and 18 feet. Let's count the places for butts. 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 in the corner, 6, 7. Compare that to a boat that's 10 feet shorter. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 if you put one right here in the middle, and that's the capacity. So an 18-foot boat actually seats more people, even though the 28-foot boat is going to be much more expensive. You lose that seating. You also, a problem with them is the interior space in the cabin. You may feel like you don't need as much room as you really do. When it comes down to spending the night and overnighting in a vessel, it sleeps 6. This is, again, the 28-foot Dancer layout. This is a very common cruiser layout in the Xpress style. And you sleep 1, 2 in the V berth, 3, 4 if you want to have the dinette or the pull-out couch, the whatever it is, 5, 6. This is, in my opinion, the best sleeping in an Express cruiser because it's the full beam, and it's 8, 8.5, 9 feet wide, depending on the boat you're in, and it's much more roomy if you can get down there. But when it comes to just hanging out at nighttime, if the weather comes up, having 4, even 6 people in this is very, very tight. I always encourage people to go spend at least an hour down in any cruiser before you buy it to make sure it's big enough. Most people err on the side of too small, and they get very claustrophobic and very tight when they plan on spending 3+ days on the boat. Next is these are big, heavy boats, which means either you need a big old trailer. This triple axle trailer is probably $15,000 or more, and this is just a 280 Dancer. You also need a big old heavy tow rig if you're going to tow it. So a 250, 350, or a 3500, maybe even a diesel, something that's going to be able to pull that big old heavy boat around and do it safely. Or you have to find a marina. Marina space can be difficult to find for in-water storage, somewhere that will fit your budget, somewhere that will allow you to keep it in. If you're in a freezing climate, what are you going to do in the wintertime when you need to pull it out and put it on the hard? And then there's also not only the cost and the availability. I really encourage you to find a marina before you buy the boat. You'd be surprised at how many people end up with the boat and know where to put it. But you have the additional cost. If you're now going to leave it in the water, well, now you got to bottom paint it every 2, maybe 3 years at the most. Some places even every year, depending on the water, how much you use the boat, and how well it's been painted. And painting even a 28, 30-foot boat could be several $1,000s. So just figure that into the equation as far as the cost of ownership, as well as other maintenance that you may need to sand and paint your drives. You change your anodes every year, and other things that come with leaving the boat in the water, and the depreciation that comes with leaving it in the water. We're going to talk more about leaving it in the water in a moment. The next is you have all of these complicated systems that you have to, 1, you have to learn, know how to use them properly. 2, you have to maintain, which adds a little bit more expense. And then 3, you have to repair because they're likely to break down. And the older your cruiser, the more likely they will be to break down. So you may have twin engines. You'll have strainers. You may have an engine heater if you're in kind of a mid-level freezing climate. You'll have a generator if you want to run your air conditioning away from the dock. You'll have an air conditioning unit and heating a lot of times. You have a water system, which is a freshwater system, including all the pumps. You have a gray water system, and you have a black water system to hold everything that goes down the toilet. And you have all of those systems to deal with and maintain and make sure are in good working order. Then you have the electrical. It can be very complicated to learn these if you don't have somebody showing you. But then you also, again, you have to maintain those electrical systems to make sure that they're running properly. If you have a generator, again, learning to operate them all so you don't cause problems is very important. We mentioned the air conditioning. If you want air conditioning when you're away from shore power, away from the dock, you'll need to have a generator, which means you'll need to have a boat that's typically 28 feet or larger. That's going to add to the expense. And again, we talked about the maintenance, but if you want that option, then you need to have a big enough boat to hold a generator, okay? Now, we've talked about the boat. What about the stuff that comes with being a boat owner? Well, if you're in a hurricane zone, your boat insurance can be much, much more expensive than you would imagine. And it may even be difficult to obtain especially if you're in South Florida. There have been so many issues with hurricanes. And if you're in that area, they may require you to have an evacuation plan. And if you don't stick to that evacuation plan, guess what? Your insurance doesn't cover you. Pay real close attention to that and don't just write it off as, oh, I'll do it. Because if you don't follow your evacuation plan, you can be in a big, big problem. It can also be difficult to get insurance. Maybe they'll say, we are not writing insurance on cruisers right now in your area. This can be any area of the country. There's a couple reasons for that. Same thing with the loans is you may be declined for a loan, and this goes with the insurance as well. If you haven't owned a vessel that large before, they may say, hey, we can't help you with the loan or the insurance. It comes down to usually about a 10-foot increase in length. So if you go from a 18 to a 28, you're okay. But if you want to go from an 18 to a 40, it's going to be very difficult to do that. If you want to go from a 20-footer to a 40-footer, they're going to probably say no. You need to go 20 to 30, 30 to 40, 40 to 50, 50 to 60, and make that progression up for financing and for insurance. You need to have both of those, and it's something that can catch people off guard when you're buying a boat. You may not know it. And one of the reasons for it is because big boats are more difficult. They can sink. They're more catastrophic when they go down because you have environmental issues of oil and fuel and black water sewage getting into the water. Can be very expensive, and then you got to haul it out. It's another reason why you may want to live aboard your vessel, and you'll be very, very hard-pressed to find a marina that will allow you to live aboard without being kind of on the sly about it. Be aware of that liveaboards, because their boats oftentimes don't leave the dock, they're more prone to sinking. They're more prone to hurricane damage. If you're in that area, they can be very difficult to get insurance on and difficult to find the marina that will allow it for you. Now, if you say you're a full-time cruiser and that boat's going to be leaving the dock all the time, you're much more prone to get better insurance or insurance at all and a spot in a marina, because and most of the marinas will say, all right, how short of a time are you staying here? Because full-time cruisers are always on the move. They're going from this place to that place to that place. Something to consider. Now, if you're just using it for a pleasure boat, one thing you may want to check out is, what does the access to the bow look like? So on some boats, you can walk through the windshield, which is fairly easy to do. On others, you need to walk around the side. You can see this is, I believe, a 27, 28-foot boat, and you're not going to be able to get through for the windshield unless you climb over it. And if you look at the access on the sides, it's very, very narrow. So you just want to make sure that whatever vessel you're looking at and your agility level, that they match. So take that opportunity to walk from one to the other, not on land, but when you're on the water and that boat could be moving around a little bit. It's something that you want to consider, because it can be challenging on some styles. Of course, you're not going to do many water sports on most cruisers. It can be very expensive for one reason. Filling up these vessels, they have very large tanks and they burn a lot of fuel. It is usually, because you're pushing that big, heavy boat through the water, usually you're going to burn 25, 50, even 100% more fuel. When you add that second engine, you get even bigger than you would on a similar sized bow rider or runabout, open bow, center console, dual console, whatever you may have. That fuel cost can really add up. If you liked the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. We'd really appreciate it. If you're in the market to buy a boat and you've found this information valuable, go check out the Boat Buyer's Toolkit. It's totally free, boatbuyerstoolkit.com. You can sign up for it. We'll send it right to you. And remember, life truly is better on a boat.